for the Affordable Housing Steering Committee. President is Beth Tarpey, Paul Kears, Fred Coed, and the town of Cohasset, Cassandra Thayer. And it is 4:12. And I want to confirm our next meeting for the 21st before we get rolling here, which is the third Tuesday of the month. So hopefully, is that good for you, Fred?
Yeah.
Okay. But generally speaking, it's always the third Tuesday of the month, unless there's a holiday that bounces us around. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to let the committee know that we have roughly 19 people here in attendance. It's our biggest crowd ever. And the reason they're on, according to our agenda, is we invited them to come on for some public comment about the parcel at the end of Evergreen Lane. Just to give folks a background, we are a steering committee in which the select board set up back in 2016 or 2018, I can't remember which year, to go out and look at town-owned property that may be buildable for housing in general, not necessarily specific to deed restricted affordable housing, but housing in general. Our charge was to take a look at where the town stands with its housing stock and where it would be in compliance with Chapter 40B of the state requirements for affordable housing in a given town, in which 10% or more of your housing stock would be deed restricted for affordability. So that's what we were chartered with. We spent probably the first 4 years trying to get to where we needed to be as far as what is our housing stock. We worked a lot with the various town planning committees that were there at the time, looking forward out into 10 years to see, what are the needs of the town and where would we be, 10 years or 20 years from now, and how may we make some changes to what we're doing today to get to where we need to be 10 or 15 years from now. So that's where we were when we started. The town planning group was a big part of that. And so we did a great job identifying quite a bit of that. At the time, the town was under their 10%. And there were a couple of projects in town that needed to come to fruition before the 2020 census. And the deadline for the 2020 census, I believe, was like October of 2020 when they were going to be submitted. And the project that officially got us over the 10%, we're at, I think, 10.3 or 10.4, somewhere around there, was the apartments at the Stop and Shop Plaza. So once those were built and filed with the state, that helped the town of Cohasset get to the 10% that we needed to be, so that we were in safe harbor and that we were good until the 2030 census. So with affordable housing, as you know, it's a percentage of your housing stock. Well, if we keep building new homes in town and none of them are affordable, it's a challenge for us to meet that 10%. Town bylaws that are in place right now require that any property that is built with I think it's 4 or more contiguous units, there would be a deed restriction on what that percentage would be in order to have affordability of units. So that comes into play to help us reach that number. A lot of the properties that are in our numbers already is 60 Elm Street, which is the housing units that are on 60 Elm. Those are counted. All of Avalon is counted because all 200 or 220 units there, they have a percentage that is deed restricted. And the way that deed restriction goes is that if you have 200 units and 10% of those are deed restricted, then you get to count all 200 of them towards your housing stock, even though only 20 of them are actually deed restricted. So that's how the state does it. If they're condominiums, you don't get to count them all. You can only count the units that are deed restricted as condominium units. So that's how that works. We were in pretty good shape. One hopeful aspect that we were hoping for is that One Pleasant Street at the time was 14 apartments, which would have been fantastic for us to be able to get credited for 14 units. Unfortunately, that property was converted to condominiums, so now we only get credit for 4 units, though that may or may not change in the future. We're not sure. The other project that we had that we felt was going to be good for us was the on Main Street in the Village, the old gas station next to the Red Lion Inn. Some folks purchased that property. They went to town planning board and submitted plans to build between 10 and 14 units with retail on the bottom. And if it was apartments, we would get credit for all of them. If it was condominiums, we'd get credit for something like 4 of them. That product never made it. And so the property is still isolated, and no decision's been made with the new owners as to what they're going to do with the property. One area of town that we looked at was, and we worked with the Affordable Housing Trust. The trust was set up because that's the financial arm to be able to fund projects without having to go to town meeting. That's kind of a standard procedure in the state of Massachusetts, where all towns usually have a housing trust where they're able to do that. There was a property at the end of Jerusalem Road in the corner of 228 over in West Corner, known as 808 Jerusalem Road. That was the old Carousel Antique property that burnt down. Town took possession of the property. And then at town meeting, we voted to transfer that land to the housing trust. Then the housing trust put out a bid to have housing built on there. Habitat for Humanity bid on that, and they won the bid and worked with us to be able to put a 2-family home on that property so that we would get credit for 2 deed restricted properties, in which we just had a ribbon cutting ceremony last week where both units have been sold and the owners live there. And it was a great opportunity for the town to have participated in taking town property, bringing it to town meeting, having it pass, go to the trust, working with the steering committee and Habitat of Humanity to actually build units that are deed restricted affordable. A big part of what we do is we've been helping those contractors that are working for private property owners to support their projects to where there's affordability units in it that benefit the town. So those are the things that we've done with private property. When it comes to public property, we've looked at a couple of spots in town where the town had vacant lots. And there were 2 properties that went to town meeting about a year or so ago, where the neighbors came and attended and said, hey, we don't think you can build a house on this property. And we're not here to build homes. We're here to evaluate town property to see if it's something that could be sold or built on, so that the funds, if the property can't be built on, then the property is sold into private residents that want to buy it, or it becomes a conservation restriction. And either way, whatever funds are available go into the housing trust for future housing projects. We had two properties that occurred where the property went to town meeting. It was voted to transfer it to the housing trust. The housing trust then evaluated whether a house could be built on those properties, and it appears a house couldn't be built on the properties. One property was sold to the abutter, and that money went to the housing trust to be used for future use and helping the town and its housing affordability. So those are some examples of what we've done. What brought everyone here to this meeting is that we were asked to go take a look at two specific places that the town owns. One is where the corner of Pond Street and 3A, which is the old Esposito Nursery. The town purchased that lot for 500,000 or so a number of years ago, where they wanted to put up a police and fire station. So that never happened. So when the town purchased King Street for the police and fire station, we went back and looked at that property to see if that's something we would want to build. So we were authorized by the trust to spend some money to send a company out there just to take a walkthrough on the property to see if it's something that we could pursue in building a home. And there is an opportunity, but there were a lot of challenges. Both sides of the property are in a conservation hold or a conservation trust or a conservation restriction. Where the building is on 3A, a house could be built there. And then there was more property kind of in the middle, but you had to kind of cross over some wetlands to get to it. So to put one home there would exhaust a lot of resources and probably take quite a number of years with all of the setbacks. So we felt it would be in the best interest of the town not to pursue that for affordable housing. We basically recommend that the town put the entire property into some level of conservation restriction. There were some folks there that were on the public meeting that expressed that the property not be put into restriction, and that Rec and Open Space might want it to put in a park. So that's where that left off. The other property we looked at was towards the end of Evergreen Lane. And further from Evergreen Lane, where you go around behind the Osgood School, it goes all the way down the hill behind the Music Circus, and all the way down to basically where One Pleasant Street is. So that is all town-owned property. We originally asked that same company that walked the property in Esposito to perhaps go out and walk the property to Evergreen to tell us what they thought. We asked him to go out there and take a look at it. He did. We did not go back and pursue anything with him yet because we needed to define exactly what property we want to examine and see if that's something that is an interest to the town in pursuing what they want to do. So we don't make the decisions. We're a steering committee. And by definition, we just recommend things to the select board and to the housing trust. And then it moves from our hands to them. So all we did was send a company out there that's just to kind of walk the property to see where we are. And I can share my screen. I will show you what we were looking at, so everyone understands what we were looking to do. And let's see. See if I can. Okay. So everyone can see the screen? Is that a yes?
Yeah,
Okay. So if you can follow my mouse here in the center, this is a Stop and Shop, as we know, right here. And in here is where they built that new building. This piece right here, which is a lane from 3A to Red Fox, that's property we looked at. But that is that property. It's directly up behind. This is the Cook Estates here. That's directly behind where in question was Peppermint Brook and all this property here. That is in a conservation restriction. This is town-owned property. So what we were looking at was initially at the end of Evergreen, we were looking at this area here. The Osgood School, as you can see, is here. And we were asked to perhaps expand the scope from here, going all the way up to the top right, all the way down here by the Music Circus. So our initial thought was, is there an opportunity to build 2 or 3 homes back here? And that was kind of the extent of it. So we just wanted to see if there was anything that is buildable. If nothing is buildable here, then we would, recommend to the select board to put it in a conservation restriction as well, like they did here. But we haven't gotten that far to see what is buildable, what is not buildable. I want to take a look at, can you see this screen here? Is it different?
yeah.
Okay. This is basically the sewer district map of the town. And over here is that pork chop we talked about. As you can see, this is a bigger piece here than when I originally looked at on the first screen that I showed you behind where Evergreen is right here. So this is a much larger piece. These are where the schools are. This is all town-owned property. This is the high school. This is all town-owned property. In fact, just so folks know, since you are abutters up here, where the water tower is, the town initially looked at putting the town hall up there as one of their sites many years ago. But there was some conservation issues up on that area. So all of this was what we were initially looking at, but our goal was just to see if we could put maybe three homes at the end of Evergreen. Now, I just want to dispel a myth, which is when we're looking at affordable housing, there's 2 types of affordable housing. There is affordable housing, which is deed restricted housing, which somebody who purchased that house has an income level that is lower than the average income level in Norfolk County. That's the county we live in. I don't know the exact formula. If you want a detailed answer that Cassandra could probably help us with some of that. And the home would be sold. They own the property. It's deed restricted for 30 years. And if they decide in 5 or 10 years they want to move, they sell the home. They sell the home to somebody who is income qualified to buy that home. Some folks ask me if that devalues your property. So according to the state, it does not devalue your property, because when real estate firms are doing comparable properties to yours when you're going to sell your house, that they compare it to non-deed restricted properties, because your house that you're selling is not deed restricted. So if you have a colonial, they're going to compare it to other colonials. If there's a deed restricted colonial, they would not add that in the comparison because it's a deed restricted property. So it does not devalue your property. It's kind of contrary to, I believe, one of the paragraphs that you had here in your open letter, but that's what we're being told by the state and by a couple of the nonprofits that do affordable housing. So that's something that would have to be confirmed. The other affordable housing is what we call small A, which is what we thought would be appropriate. to where we look at property for the town to build smaller homes. You know, we're not looking to build, 3,000, 4,000 square foot homes. All of the studies that we did for the town, a lot of people were asking for smaller homes, whether it's a Cape or a small colonial, to where people could downsize and not have to move out of town. That was a big issue that is town-wide and continues to be town-wide. So that's what's known in most communities as small A, which is affordable housing that you can actually afford for a lot of residents. And it's not deed restricted and it's not income based to be able to get into that home. So those are things that we look at as well. So I'm going to end it there, and then see if I can. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we did receive a letter, which is a proposal to protect Lily Pond watershed and conserve the Evergreen Lane parcel in Cohasset, Massachusetts. I'm assuming that it came from Adam Stoll. That letter had no signature and it had no names on it. Just sincerely concerned citizens of Cohasset. So that pretty much opens it up to 8,000 residents. We did not receive a copy of the petition with the names of the people who signed it to go along with the letter. But the letter also went to the select board and we haven't heard from the select board. I'll open it up for any conversation, I guess. Adam, I know you've emailed us back and forth a few times, and as I stated, we merely sent the guy out there with boots to see, how wet is the wetlands, that type of stuff. So I did read through your executive summary and the whole process, and it's I congratulate you on a level of due diligence that in Cohasset normally comes at a very late stage in a process. So it's nice to see something up front. So you may go ahead and speak. Adam, you're on mute. Yeah, we can't hear you at all. Cassandra, can you unmute him?
No, I only have the power to mute people. I don't have the power to unmute them.
Oh. Okay,
Zoom problems.
so we can't hear Adam. Let's see.
While Adam is working on getting unmuted, I did just want to note that maybe it wasn't super evident, but one of the attachments that I had forwarded in conjunction with Adam's letter is I forget what kind of file it is. It's not a Word document, but it's basically a digital copy of all of the names of people that have signed his petition.
Okay, yeah, I was unable to open that
Okay.
piece. Yeah.
It could have just been like the file type that you were unable to open. It was a weird, I don't remember if it was like a JPEG or something like that.
Is there any select board member on?
I
I didn't see any.
don't think so. I don't see anybody. There's a couple phone numbers, but
Yeah,
I don't see anybody that's standing out.
So Adam is going to work on trying to get his unmuted. Do you want to try and log in and log back out, or do you think it's something on your end, Adam?
I think he might also be frozen now.
Yeah. So, oh,
He
looks
might
like
have.
yeah, he's logging back in. There you are.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, great. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, computers are hard today. We'll get through it. All right. Paul, first of all, thank you for that context and walking myself and the group kind of through the thought process, the purpose, the intent of the committee. That is very helpful. I also don't want to kick things off without saying, like, I appreciate what this board is doing. I have to assume that much, if not all, of this group is volunteering their time. And so, thank you for what you're doing for the town. Thank you for what you are trying to do for the citizens of this town. I truly do want to overlay anything that we talk through here, anything in the proposal with that appreciation. So I'm assuming everyone has lives outside of this, and the volunteer effort that you are all going through is much appreciated. So I want to start it off with that. Hopefully that is well received by the committee and the group.
Absolutely.
Sure. And then Cassandra, I appreciate you entertaining me over the last couple of weeks. I know we've had a lot of back and forth of email and phone calls. I appreciated your thorough and thoughtful responses. So again, thank you for that in a larger group setting. I think you deserve that appreciation. So cool. Okay. I have a number of questions, about 24, and I'm not sure if it's helpful just to go through those or if it's fair to the committee for me to just try to dump those on you. I think what I would ask is, yes, I did help craft the proposal. There is approximately 185 digital signatures assigned to that. Paul, I apologize for not signing it. That is on me. So that's a good learn there. But I think I'd like to ask, like, high level, is there feedback from the proposal? Did the committee get to review it? And like, can we go into any specific areas of that you feel are misleading or inaccurate or more impactful than others? I would love to dive into where we are today, why Evergreen Lane is in scope, why we're not looking out to the right towards the music circus, where I think there's less impact to town resources and waters and the environment. I'm happy to touch on some of the real estate impact that you talked through. While that is a concern, that is lower down the line, right? I think, to be fair, we have to look at the broader impact to the town and not just to the few houses within this area. And I think that's why environmental water impact is really where we want to go and where the concern is versus the immediate land value to some of the abutters. So I think, to go back to my first comment, any feedback from the committee on the actual proposal or opposition proposal to start?
Yeah, so I don't know, Fred, do you have any questions on the proposal at all that they submitted?
No.
Okay, Beth?
No, but it is so early in we understand your concerns and all. But honestly, we're just like dunking a toe in the water here. So, I mean, it is good that you're early on it and giving us your feedback, but honestly, different options, there's different options to the land. It could just be that we put a price, that we send it to the trust takes it over and then sells it, and somebody puts one nice house on there. It's not necessarily going to be affordable housing. So some of the plots of land are really just to add to our kitty for future uses, So I just wanted to clarify that I know everyone, and I understand, because I would have been on the same, like, wait a minute, what are you doing? So just to add to Paul's point, it doesn't necessarily mean there is going to be affordable housing there. It could be a mansion that's $3 million and going to bring all of your prices up.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for that. Just to clarify, like, the group's concern is not the type of housing placed in the land. It's building on the land in general, right? I think our concern, and what we really want to make sure we over-index on, is the concern to the waterways, to Peppermint Brook, to Cohasset's water supply. And that could be a beautiful $3 million home, or it could be 4 beautiful smaller homes for small a or deed restricted for 30 years, right? Like, I think to be fair, it's less about is it affordable housing or not? It's more about like, why are we even looking in this area to build when we know there's clear impact to our resources broadly across the community, not just Evergreen Lane, Old Pasture, Reservoir, and things like that, right?
So, so yeah, let me help you with that. So no one's determined that at all. No legal entity has determined that. I can tell you that I have been involved in that area because I'm a sewer commissioner. And as you know, they built the 21 units over there at Stop and Shop Plaza. And he ended up having to be on town sewer. And the reason being is because he had systemic issues with septic systems over there. And the last thing they wanted was another septic system over there that had systemic issues. So that was viewed by Mass DEP to where they said that if there's a little known Massachusetts law that says if you've got contiguous property under common ownership, that there's a limit to how many gallons per day you could pump in a septic system. So that caused them to suggest that sewer was the answer for that property. So that's how that property got built. So we all took a look at the environmental impact for that property. The town allowed the building to be built long before we came along. And all of those issues were brought up with Peppermint, and he still was able to build the building there. Now, Cook Estates had the same issue. So Cook Estates abuts Peppermint, and they had environmental issues, but they still built. What happened up there is they had a complete failure of their entire septic system. So much so that the director of the Board of Health condemned the septic system, and they had to replace that within a 24-month period for public health reasons. And the only solution to that was sewer, and that sewer line was run over to the Dare Hill pumping station. So that was another project that we have. So we're very familiar with the environmental areas that you're talking about. With our steering committee, these, like Beth said, this is kind of beyond what we do. We identify town-owned property to see if it's buildable. Now, no one has produced documents to us stating what lots that the town owns are not buildable in that given area. So what you're stating is that everyone's concern is the water supply and not having homes built behind them. And if that's the case, then there's only a small portion of land at the end of Evergreen that we're being told would have that conservation restriction on it, and the rest of the properties would be buildable. And there's already sewer there, so it wouldn't have to worry about people perking property because there are sewer lines up there, and that would help build more units if all of them could be hooked up on sewer. So that's kind of where we were. We weren't looking to do anything other than really to see if the land was buildable. And like I stated, if it's not buildable, and what you're stating in section 3 is accurate, and we can identify it accuracy per the town lots that are there, then we can put the conservation restrictions on those lots, just like I showed you in that pork chop. That's town-owned property that, we were looking at doing. Now, you can lift conservation restrictions. It's a high hurdle to do it, but you can. Other towns have done it. So, our opinion is, let's see what the real use of this property is. If it's a conservation restriction, then we would want to go to the select board and ask for that restriction to be put in. Because we don't need somebody 20 or 30 years from now coming back and saying, hey, we want to build a house here. And then everyone goes through this all over again. You know, we'd rather identify those lots and deed restrict them if what you're saying is accurate. And you know, specifically, it's really, you know, section 3 and 4 of your letter that would be specific to any conservation restrictions. So we can certainly take a look at what those lots are. The rest of the property that's up there and that kind of goes downhill behind the music circus, you know, we weren't really ready to pursue looking at those other areas at the moment. We wanted to see where we are with something small that could be achievable. And that's why we kind of chose Evergreen, just to put 2 or 3 houses up there to help us get over that 40B restriction, because the 30/30 census is coming in 5 years. And what was helpful is COVID kind of delayed the 2020 census. So that was a benefit to the town that there was such a delay, because we were able to get the Stop and Shop Plaza in time to be counted on the housing stock. So that's kind of where we are on it. You know, we're not opposed to, you know, conservation restrictions on property at all. In fact, we're recommending that it be done on the Esposito property. You know, just, you know, Fred's been on the Conservation Commission. Fred's been a town selectman. Fred's got a lot of history. I'm not going to say how old he is, but he's got a lot of history. And, you know, Fred's advice was, you know, walk away from the Esposito property. It's got a lot of restrictions all around it. Yeah, you could drop a house there, and who's going to want to live there if you can't play in the yard? So, you know, we take all the opinions and kind of put them together and then present it to the select board, because they're the ultimate decision makers. So some of the other items that you had here that we've gone to look through is I went through all of your sections piece by piece. I think that one area that there may be some overreach is your list of highly feasible housing candidates, sites. There isn't 470 acres that the town owns, I believe, that you can build on. We had gone through this about 4 or 5 years back when we located a couple of other parcels of property. So we're not familiar with that. The Esposito property, as you say, is 7 acres, but only 2 or 3 of it is buildable. And unfortunately, so you can't really count the 7 acres. It's really 3 acres. The other acres down in Esposito Lane, 2 or 3 of them are restricted on one side and a conservation restriction. On the other side of it is in a conservation trust. So they're owned by 2 different people, or 2 different entities, if you will. The land that's left is only about 2 or 3 acres, which runs in between the 2 of them, with that building out front on 3A. So that's one that obviously we looked at, and you can't do anything with it. So,
Paul, can I jump in? I appreciate everything
Sure.
providing us, so thank you. I don't mean to be rude to interrupt, but I want to be conscious of the time. You mentioned sewer earlier, so that's interesting. I'm assuming that there's a lot of convenience for the town, for the builders to find a suitable area and or parcel to build on that is already hooked up to sewer water, right? I understand that side of it. That's an assumption. You can tell me if I'm wrong there. Is Evergreen Lane the only area that we are looking at that has sewer to it? Or if we look beyond the schools, we look by the music circus, is that also connected? Are there other town-owned parcels that have sewer connectivity at this time. I'm curious, like, why Evergreen Lane is the area that we have focused on when, okay, maybe it's not the number that I captured. I think your comment of buildable land versus town-owned land is very fair. But I'd be curious to know, like, what factors have driven Evergreen Lane parcel as the top priority, knowing that, like, whether this Class A is valid or not, I would say talking to the EPA director for Mass, like, I think that is quite valid. Like, what categorized that as like a bubbled up, let's go explore here? And I know you're also saying, hey, we want to look to put a few homes, whether it be 1, 2, or 3. Like, we're talking about 2030, which is really good context. So thank you for that. Like, are we looking at long-term growth here? Like, what if we have to build 6 homes instead of 3 homes based on that census? Like, do we want to find an area that affords us a little bit more scalability and also, right, alleviates any of the concerns for environmental and or water impact, which I think is in scope today for Evergreen? That makes sense?
It does for another committee. For us, for what we're looking at, I mean, these are things that, you know, the planning board looks at, zoning board looks at, when people present to them a plan to build something. Those are what they look at. You know, did it perk, or is it septic, or is it sewer? You know, what is the impact? What are the setbacks? You know, all that type of stuff. So we were tasked to go find town-owned property to where we think you can build homes on it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only property that the town owns that you could build a home on that we're aware of. That list that you gave us, I don't believe any of those are buildable. Now, another example is behind the ball field senior center pool. There's no land there that the town owns that you could build anything on. You know,
Because-
the senior center was built by trading town land that was behind the pool with the town pool trust. The town pool is not a town pool. It's a private entity. It's owned and it's in a trust, and it had to go to the Attorney General's office to trade land in order to make the lot buildable. The lot was not buildable at the time, so that took a couple of years to do, to get a senior center in there. So the town has very limited land that it owns that you can build on. That's the issue. Now, there's private property that people can build on. There's 10 or 15 acres behind Shaw's. Well, town doesn't own it. There's nothing we can do. You know, there's plenty of property in town that people can convert, as you know. If you know, we've all been through what the MBTA is pushed on every town in the state of Massachusetts, for the high density affordable living. That doesn't help us at all, because if they build something, 10% of it automatically becomes, you know, deed restricted for us. So it doesn't increase our affordable housing. It keeps the number the same. So when we're looking at property, we don't look to see if it's hooked to sewer or it's going to be septic. We just look to see if the lot is buildable. You know, if it's a conservation issue, you can't build on it, we walk away. If it's too small of a lot, you know, planning board said, no, your setbacks aren't there, then we can't build on it, we walk away. So that's Bates Lane had that problem, and Heather Drive had that problem, where they, you know, there was a good sized lot, but you just couldn't put a house on it, even a small one.
What about the backside of the schools, right? You showed your map earlier, and you said
Yes.
it expanded on the schools. I think, like, can we call that? I referred to it as Smith Place. Is that a fair parcel designation?
So
And the music circus again, like, I'm
it is, all of it is open, but the question is, you know, once you go back here for all of this property, then we have to see what these lots are to see what this property is. Can you see my screen or no?
hold on.
Nope. If I'm not sharing, I'll go ahead and share again. Hold
You're not currently sharing, Paul.
on. I'm not sharing. It's usually a good share. Let's see here. Share. Wait. Go back to. Okay, am I sharing now? No. let me try it again.
I couldn't figure out my microphone for, you get a reprieve on screen sharing, Paul.
So sorry about that.
There you go. Yeah,
Okay.
great.
So this is, unfortunately, this is the only piece that I have. It doesn't go all the way down here, but we originally just looked here because if you see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 homes right here that abut this property here. This is not to scale, but I'm saying if you assume it's to scale, it appears that you could put 4 homes exactly right here, directly behind these homes, and it would not be within the conservation restriction of this area here, which this is what's illustrated as the conservation restriction. So you could put homes here theoretically, and all we asked is that if we put homes there, that based on what we're building in Cohasset, would 4 of these be enough to keep us at 10%? All we have to be is at 10%.
Yeah.
So that's all we need to be. So we don't have to be at 12 or 18, 10 to the number.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
saying,
Now we can continue going all the way down here and all the way in through here. It's a much larger scope, which we don't have a problem doing. But we wanted to see what it would be just for a small partial, to kind of get, to the select board to see if that's something that interests them or not.
yeah, I think that's the concern as well, right? Like, again, there's other land, I think, it requires due diligence to determine if it's buildable or not, but I think like we're looking at a large piece of property that is town owned, that is connected to sewer. And if we split it in half, I feel like we're focusing on an area that is smaller, resource constrained, and has likely impact to waterways and environmental habitats. Like, I don't want to sound rude. I just don't understand why we are not looking beyond that as part of the scope as well.
So we originally looked at this because of the size of the scope, which was just build 3 or 4 homes, right? If we go down here behind the music circus, you're talking about 30 to 40 homes.
Well, I don't think we have to build 30 to 40,
Right?
and we have the ability.
There's 12 to 15 acres down there, I believe. Is that?
Sounds like a good option, right? Like,
Cassandra, what is the, do you know, Cassandra, off the top of your head, what that is?
I do not know the acreage off the top of my head, but I could find out fairly quickly.
Okay. That was, that Music Circus Corridor, you have 87 acres on your document, which is Smith Place Music Circus Corridor, 87 acres in Seward.
mhm.
Largest parcel of infrastructure, ready for sewer, water, avoids single access like Evergreen Lane, and doesn't bottleneck 3A at Clay Spring.
That's right.
So I can tell you there is not 87 acres available to build on there. So I don't know where the 87 comes from.
I think the buildable comment, again, to what I said earlier, is
Okay,
totally
yeah,
right.
we can say, hey, you know what? Let's walk away from Evergreen. Let's go down the hill and see if we can't put homes there.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I know, but and I'm sure a lot of the residents do as well. But you stated your only concern was conservation. So if there are no conservation issues here, you would be not
I think-
opposed to having homes here.
I don't think my only concern or our only concern is conservation. It is our leading concern for sure.
Okay. Okay, Cassandra?
So I just looked it up that, assuming that I selected the correct property,
Okay.
that it's kind of connects to Smith Place, but it technically has a address of Rear Old Pasture Road. It is 14 acres.
14, that's what I thought. Yeah, I figured it was about 12. Okay, so 14 acres.
Okay, is that 14 buildable acres?
That is not determined through the assessor's office. That is just the total parcel.
Okay,
In order to determine if it was buildable, you'd have to do far more research.
okay. And so is that research in scope for this committee's effort?
Oh, yeah, we have no problem researching that. In fact, when we started this committee, there was a gentleman by the name of Clark Brewer who was on our committee. And Clark is, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute. Clark has been on the planning board. I don't know if he still is. But there's a thing in the state of Massachusetts called 40R, which is affordable housing for what they call working class families. And 40R are units that are built and are restricted by size by the state when you put them in. And those come along with various tax credits, and those are income requirements based on dual income. And those homes are restricted to a certain size, so they can't be over, I think, 2,400 square feet or something like that. And they can't be smaller than, I think, 900. But I'd have to see what the new state laws are. So he originally thought that it would be ideal to put that down in that 14 acres to put some sort of small neighborhood in there where all the homes are affordable. If you could come to Cohasset and buy a house for 400 or 500, I mean, Beth is in real estate. I think that would be ideal for a lot of folks. If there are people who want to downsize their large 4-bedroom colonial because their kids graduated and got real jobs and moved out, then they could downsize somewhere and stay in Cohasset. Right now, a lot of folks are going to Wheelwright, or they go over to 100 Pond, or they try and find something else small in town. That's where that's at. A couple of things that have changed in Massachusetts too is that the state passed a law to where the accessory dwelling, which means you have an in-law apartment, the state has decided that that is something that is Sandra can help me with the language on that, but it is something that is a natural right to have as
By
a home.
right. Yeah, it's by
By
right.
by rights, yeah. So
Yeah, again, Paul, it's super helpful context
okay.
um,
What I'd like to do, Adam, is I'd like to open up the floor to anyone else who has any questions, to see if anyone else has any concerns that we can help you answer. Does anyone else have any other questions or anything? I know I've talked to the Farrens, who are direct abutters, quite a number of times.
Yeah, well, first of all, same. I thank all of you for doing what you're doing. I mean, that is, it's always 1% of the population, just 1% of the population, does all the hard work and the volunteer work. And then the rest of the 99% complain about it or put their 2 cents in. You guys are doing this for nothing, which is incredible and almost unbelievable. You're taking your time out of your days. So I really do super appreciate that. And you people are fighting for our town. And my gosh, me, my family, everybody involved, thanks you for doing what you're doing every day. What I'm basically interested in is, I don't want to jump the gun on the 5-year window. 5 years is going to happen like that. It's just going to snap. All of a sudden, we're there in 5 years and we don't have enough housing. It's going to happen fast. But it's 5 years from now. I think there are towns around us, Paul, you would know better, or somebody else would know better, that are running out of town-owned land. What I don't want to do is for my kids and my grandkids to look back and say, we gave up all of our town-owned land. We don't have any more. We're out. We're out of it. We don't have any more. So my thought, is twofold. Number one, let's really take a look at the town-owned land. Adam seems like he's already done a lot of super good research on it. Let's look and see what other land is available. Like, on 3A, you don't want the kids playing in the yard, but maybe that's not town-owned land that we would find valuable. I'd really like to take a real hard look, which I haven't yet, and Adam's done a lot of the work, is to take a real hard look at what is available. But even before that, is there any way we could reach out to the private community? There's a lot of private land in Cohasset that is buildable, will at some point be sold. What if it was sold 2 years from now, 3 years from now? What, we jumped the gun, we just gave up. I mean, I walked through that path from my home to the school. The Harts have done it, all of our neighbors, my kids have done it, back and forth. And there is so much, you'd have to be there to see it. But there's so much for that land to offer the town of Cohasset and the kids from the whole neighborhood. That's how they get to school. It's how my kids got to school. I'm willing to give it up if there are no other options, but I have to be convinced that we have done our due diligence and there is no better place, town-owned, number one, and that's, I just don't want to give up town-owned land. And the second thing is private. Let's look at the private land, because what a shame that would be is we put 4 houses back there, all of a sudden behind, what is it, you say Shaw's or something, that land sold, and all of a sudden we meet our quota, we go over our quota, and we'll say, you know what, we gave up another town-owned land, and my kids and grandkids are gonna they'll have one less parcel. I just don't want to run out.
No, I'm with you on it. Everything that we've been doing so far has really been focused on private ownership and supporting those projects, going to the different boards and supporting them to the other boards in our town to say, hey, listen, this guy needs a permit, he needs to get this and he gets that. So that's worked very well for us. Unfortunately, in the private sector, every project they do has to have a profit.
Yeah.
And in affordable housing as it stands right now, unless it's subsidized in some manner, whether it be tax credits or direct subsidies from the state, it generally doesn't work. So that's why you see such a high demand right now, where the state is pushing for more housing. That is the focus for this current governor, and that's the direction they're pushing the whole state into. They're pushing the MWRA to move more towns onto their systems, which is water and sewer, so that more land is buildable and could be connected. They're put the accessory dwelling units as a by right, so that by law right now, you can have an in-law apartment, doesn't matter what your town zoning laws are to a certain extent. There are laws that you have to go by in the town, but you have a right to have an in-law apartment. I can tell you that right now in the State House, they're talking about a by right 2-family in the state of Massachusetts. So it's going from one extreme to the other. But in our little town of Cohasset, we were really hopeful we got those 14 units on One Pleasant Street, and it didn't happen. And we were really hopeful to get those 12 units at the gas station, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right there, that would have been huge. And I can tell you, we were pretty forward a number of years ago, prior to Avalon selling to the preserve. They have the ability to put, I think, 50 to 100 units up there.
Wow.
So they have the land for it. And we asked them if they would consider building up there. And at the time they said, no, they build once and move on. So maybe with the preserve, we could reach out to them to see if they want to do that. If they could build 50 or 100, that holds us for 20 years.
Wow.
And we don't have
Could
to
we
touch
keep
town.
asking and keep, and so down on the center of town, is that a dead deal?
So it's all privately owned, so we don't know. There's a fence around it right now because it's got some liability issues, I'm sure, if somebody gets hurt on the property, right? So whoever purchased the property purchased that property with the town planning board's approval to build the units in the plans that were submitted. So at some point, they go back in front of the town planning board to say, hey, I'm the new owner. I'm going to do this exactly the same way, or I want to make some changes. And Cassandra, have they heard from anyone yet?
So I know that the current owner came before the planning board to ask for an extension on the permit, which to make a long story short, they were already granted due to some state legislation that extended some permits during a certain time frame. So they still have time to move forward with the original proposed project, which would have given the town 2 additional units on the SHI. If
If
they
it was condos. If it
if
was
it
condos.
was condos. Well, the original permit was that they had the option to put those units off-site within a certain time frame, and then if they couldn't do it within a certain time frame, which I don't remember what the time frame was, then it would revert to be on the property. So they were proposed to be rentals, however, they were going to be off-site, so then they were going to be just the 2 units because they weren't in conjunction with the other units that were on site.
Okay,
So apartments are better than condos because we get more credits for apartments.
correct.
And, like, is there any way the town could go to them, or we, the town folk, could go to them and saying, you'd be doing us a huge favor if, I mean, have they made up the decision on, okay, we're gonna absolutely put condos in there, or we're gonna put apartments? Has that decision been made yet? Are you,
They went back and forth, remember? They were gonna do apartments, then they were gonna do condos, and then I think they gave up the project because I think they were leaning toward condos, but I think they got a little nervous about what could they sell them for, you know? And the one Pleasant Street is having a hard time. They were supposed to be apartments. They were built as apartments, and they're not very exciting as condos, so they're having a hard time selling them.
but is there any way the state or our town could do anything to help them push them if they're deciding between condos and apartments? So is any way we could like encourage them, or give us our name, I'll go knock on their door and just because if they're really considering, okay, apartments or condos, what if the town or the state could do something to help us get, because we're doing this, the federal government, the state, and the town a favor if they put in apartments. Does that sound right to you?
So, municipal governments,
Yeah.
can issue grants, they can issue credits, they can waive fees. So those are things that they can do. So those are something that we would have to go to the housing trust to discuss, to say, hey, the property owner is looking to either go condo or apartment. I can tell you the conversations we've had with people is that, well, if I go to apartments, I might lose this much income because now I have to rent 4 of them below market. Okay, so I'm gonna lose $400 a month
Yeah.
times 4. I'm gonna lose $1,600 a month in revenue, potential lost revenue, right?
Yeah.
So then, what you can do is you can come up with a financial consideration for that, in the form of a grant from the trust, or a tax credit, or a waiver of fees from the town to kind of help offset the potential lost revenue you may
I
not
like
get.
that. I like that thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, that's interesting. That would, if I were the builder, that would be of interest to me. But can the state help out at all? Can the federal government? Because we're doing this, it's a requirement for us to do this. Can they outside? We'll get some help, and maybe Cohasset, the trust could maybe give a little help, and that might just push it just might move the needle enough so that we're
Yeah,
saving our town-owned land.
usually what the state offers traditionally is tax credits.
Okay.
So,
But
all of
some,
the units, yeah, so right now, that MBTA law, all these units that are being built within 1 mile of a train station.
Yeah.
It's all tax credit driven.
Okay.
Anyone who builds there, that's how it works. The affordable housing units, there's a lot of people in general industry that are in that financial world that buy and sell tax credits. That's what they do. So it's a whole industry. I'm not really familiar with that side of it, but I know that there are areas that they specialize in for that. So
That's a great angle. I mean, that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so So we're open to any recommendations or suggestions. I haven't heard from anyone. I don't know, Adam, when you sent this out to the select board. I know that there is one select board member, I believe, is in a butter. And there are two that live down the hill on Pleasant, if I'm not mistaken. So they would be affected by the suggestion of the music circus.
But that can't have impact into the suitability of the land, correct? I mean, if that's the case, I'll join the housing committee tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so we can see what the select board has to say. I haven't heard from them at all.
Right, I want to make sure I'm pretty clear about that, right? Like, I'm appreciative of everyone volunteering and or being selected for a board. The going back to what you said initially, like the committee's job is to identify buildable land and buildable parcels to present to the town. I think independent of the type of a butter, whether it's Adam Stoll with
Mhm.
3 crazy kids or someone on the select board down near the music circus, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's important. Jim, I don't want to cut you off, Jim. So if you need to close, go ahead. I just want to try to get back to like being mindful of everyone's time. I am super appreciative. I don't know if this is supposed to end at 5 or 5:15 or 5:30. So Paul, thank you for staying over and to the group. I would love to understand some next steps, how we can help influence and move those forward. I'd love to understand, like it sounded like we committed to looking at Smith Place on the backside of that town-owned property. I want to make sure that that's now in scope for the committee to review. I still have a ton of questions, but this has been very helpful. So let me
Okay.
know.
So, yeah, so what I'll do is, we're meeting again in October on the 21st. So, we can put this on the agenda again. What I'll do is I'll reach out to the select board to see if I can get some time with them to understand what they would like to do. I can certainly work with the planning department to see what would be appropriate action to identify the property by lot, is what we need to do. Because right now it's just, they're just kind of just general lots. And, there's one thing that hasn't been identified, and that is what the buffer would be around the, Osgood School. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. Because the school doesn't have a property line, if you will. So we just have to identify what that is. So I'll first speak with the select board to see what they want to do, because we had gone before them specifically for these two properties, this one and Esposito, so I can go back to them with an update. I can find out what it takes to identify the area and kind of go from there. Do you have any input on that, Cassandra?
I think those are all great points. If I could make a shameless plug, because we do have a lot of members of the public who I would venture to say at least have an interest in affordable housing. The Affordable Housing Trust is down. They have 3 open seats right now that they are very interested in filling. So if there's anybody who is interested in becoming a member of the trust and being directly involved in not only this conversation, but other conversations that have to do with affordable housing and funding or, supplementing and encouraging developers for affordable housing, I highly encourage you to apply.
Awesome.
How do we do that? How do we do that, Cassandra? Do I message you?
Anybody who's interested is more than welcome to email me. There is a link on the town's website to apply with your interest to any board or committee, but the Affordable Housing Trust, I believe, is also on there.
And those are the trust is where the funds are. We transfer money from CPC every year into the trust for the sole purpose of using it for affordable housing. So those decisions are made there. Property
So just
transferred to them, and then they decide what to do with the property. Do they want to you know, whatever their decisions are goes there.
Does that mean if we go and conduct a wetland study or delineation for the parcel, is that assessment, if that costs 50 or 100,000, does that come out of that trust?
It does.
Okay. Can I ask, like, what do we know what that cost is? I'm curious to know, like, if we're going to go spend money on an area that we think may have impact to standing water and or our watershed. I'm just curious if we know that.
Yeah, so I don't know what that cost is. We'd have to get a quote.
Okay.
You know, what we paid for right now was about $800. So it was just a cursory look at what's there. And that's
Okay.
kind of what we have. So
Okay.
I would rather have, when we went out there, we didn't define the boundaries of where to look. It was just head to the end of Evergreen and see what's there.
Mhm.
And then he said, well, we need to figure this out, you know, how far do you want me to go? Right. So we focused on Esposito first because that was easier. So now I'll work with Cassandra to find out what the appropriate excavation of that would look like. Whether it be a drone that flies over and looks at it, whether it be putting a stick in the ground, whether it be something more detailed than that, I don't know. I'm not familiar with identifying property, but we have to identify what lots we're looking at.
Yeah, I think
But
that's
right now, right now, my sketch with the yellow marker, it looks pretty good, but there's no footage there, so we need to do that.
yeah, and I think what I'm trying to get at is in that updated conversation, is Smith Place beyond the schools now part of the scope?
Oh,
Right.
all of the land is part of the scope. So, yeah, at this point, you know,
So on the
we've addressed it in public session that, you know, there's that 14 acres that are there. It does connect to Evergreen, and, you know, it's something that has to be looked at as a whole, I would think, just to identify all of that land back there. It's all town owned, it's all contiguous. You know, there might have to be a fire lane that goes from Evergreen down to the bottom. I have no idea, you know.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful spot for a town hall. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's as soon as you present this in the public domain, there is 8,000 residents and about 22,000 opinions. So so I'm sure we'll get to those, and like I said, we'll just I'll reach out to the select board, and then I'll reach out to the planning board to say, hey, if we were to look at this property for the purpose of housing stock, what are the proper steps to go through? What comes first? Cutting the grass? You know, what is it? You know, do we wait till the fall? Do we wait till the winter? Do we wait till the summer? You know, I don't know what the appropriate time is to evaluate property and how they do it. So we just have to look into that. So is there any other comments from anyone? There's a little button with a hand on it. If you push that, or you could just take yourself off mute if you have a question or anything. Because if not, I'm going to end the public comment session if everyone is done.
I think, Paul, I will take all the oxygen, so I'll be fair to others. But like the October 21st, I'm appreciative of a milestone to work backwards from. Like that's a lot of time between now and then. Like, can we help? Can I help specifically? Right? Who can I engage between now and then? I'm not good at just sitting around.
Sure.
And so I think if there's lead time here, one, I want to be of value. I don't want to be a pest. But I do want to make sure we are exploring all of the options. And if that's me engaging, you know, the EPA and others to go look at Class A protected areas within Evergreen Lane parcel, like I'll go do that.
Yeah. So I appreciate the offer. I would certainly contact you once we identify what we need to do.
Mhm.
It's not going to be as helpful to go out on your own, and I've got a guy at the EPA, I want to have him come down and look at this. What I've learned from the town is you've got to start at a proper place with those who are decision makers, and then they will say, okay, go to the EPA and have them come down. You know what I mean? So it's a ask for permission before you beg for forgiveness approach, right? So I just want to get a hold of the select board to find out what it is that they're comfortable with, and then go to the planning department, to Cassandra or the planning board, to find out how do we identify the property and what agencies or what steps do we need to go to. So if we identify a contractor is a subject matter expert, then, I can certainly call you and let you know we need a name of 3 contractors, or we may already have them and this is what's going to happen. And then, if you want to, if there's sometimes you're allowed to go on the site with them and see what they're seeing. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes it has to be independent. So, once we identify what that is, we certainly give you a call.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, we're not, we just spent most of our time on 808 Jerusalem. That just wrapped up for us. This isn't, these things aren't hot button issues for us. We move at a pace that's comfortable for what we need to do for the town. And so, we're not going crazy here in the next couple of months trying to put a house up by spring. So
Yeah, it's a very long process. So, there's nothing that's going to happen really anytime soon.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to be fair to this group, like express concern early, right? Versus late.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. And
Yeah.
to my mind, sometimes there's a reason why these things are still open at this stage of the town's development. And it could be that, its best use is as an open piece of land. So that's what we'll figure out.
Yeah, I mean, there was a gentleman who wanted to put up 21 units at the bottom of Pleasant, remember? And the neighbors came out and that was the end of them. And he came back with 19 and they came back out again, and then we never saw him again. So, I don't know whatever happened there, because we looked at getting affordable units out of that. So
Yeah, and he got pretty far along, but I think also that's very wet there. So
yeah,
there's a lot of, that parcel going down behind the schools and everything. And isn't there an old town well there that was probably again why
Yeah,
that,
the very first well field was along the tracks there by Sawyer Street,
yeah.
by the
So
Music
that-
Circus parking lot, yeah.
so there's a
Yep.
lot of, I think a lot of back reasons why those parcels are still open. And that,
Yeah.
and when we start getting into them, then you realize, oh, this is why it's still open, or this is what's
Right.
going on there,
Yeah, Beth is right. So, once, like I said, we'll go work with the town planner and figure out, well, what's the appropriate way to look at it. We've got a lot of folks like Fred in town who will say, you know what? I've already talked to the folks who looked at putting a cemetery there. I've got all the plans, I've got all of the reports of everything that they could do there.
Yeah.
So, I'm there's a lot of knowledge there, so we'll take a look at it. And like I said, if the answer's put it in a conservation trust, then so be it, let's just move on. So I just want to be able to take a look at this open property and have a decision made, so that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there's not another group out there staring at it again.
Yeah, plus one to that, right? This is the time to put it in conservation. So I strongly agree.
Well, listen, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. I greatly appreciate it. It's great to have the awareness in the community. And, we've been doing this, like I said, since 2016 or 2018. So we've been moving right along, and I'm glad folks are out there taking a look at it. So
And to echo Cassandra, the steering committee can also use a few more. Well, we need at least one more, right?
we have one more seat. Yeah, we have a seat open here too as well. That's
Yeah.
right.
So if you want to
Susan,
be, if you want to be in the early side of it, or you want to control the money, you can decide.
Can I just say one thing to Cassandra? I really do appreciate, Cassandra, that you brought that up because there are positions open and you don't see a lot of people raising their hands. I've done my share of volunteering in Cohasset for small little, for small, teams, projects, little building I think I built most of the playgrounds we have in Cohasset. And again, you get very little thank yous, but you've got so many complaints like this is too high, that's too low, we should have put this in. And I think it's I just want to say thank you, and I know everyone here does want to say thank you for the time that you guys volunteer to put into this stuff, protecting our town and trying to help us all out. I mean, Cassandra, thanks for bringing that up because I think it's just to see there are openings and there's not a lot of people jumping in. It's like going to war,
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the work that all of you have put in, during your stints there. I mean, you're in unpaid, which is absolutely ridiculous, but thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate it. Thank you, Adam, for your detailed response and your conversation today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks to the board as well for entertaining it. I'm looking forward to continued conversations. Paul, really, the context was very appreciative, so thanks for the time.
Okay. You got it.
Thank you.
And Cassandra has your email, right? Adam?
He definitely does.
Okay.
Yes,
So
I
we
have
can
it.
reach out. Once we get some information, we'll reach out to you. Yep. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, folks.
Take care.
Okay, I'm going to move on to quickly move this agenda. Any updates on 1 Pleasant Street? Cassandra, do you have any?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a very small update, but so the owners of 1 Pleasant Street are going back to the planning board tomorrow night in their request to modify the last permit that they received, which changed the residential units from rentals to condos. Now they are requesting to revert back to rentals. Which would be good because then good for the town, because then all of them would count on the SHI as
Okay.
you
When's
previously.
that meeting?
Tomorrow night.
Zoom?
Yes,
Okay. So we can attend to support that.
sure.
Yeah, we can also ask the trust if I don't know what it costs to convert it back, but certainly there's money in the trust. If that helps them with some consideration to be able to, like we offered money from the trust to help the gentleman down on South Main Street across from St. Anthony's so that he could get that registered with the state. So that would be great. That's awesome. That's great news. Subcommittee update. I can speak on behalf of Mary. 808 Jerusalem Road. That went extremely well. I'm glad we were all there. I'd like to thank all the prior committee members that have worked on this, everyone from the trust, all prior trust committee members as well. But a special thank you to Mary for really staying on top of Habitat for Humanity for as long as she did. She did a fantastic job. And I'm so happy for the 2 homeowners.
Yeah, that's a great
the-
story that they know each other.
Yeah. So that worked out great. So Cassandra, a feather in your cap there. You're the town planner. This was 100% the town.
It's wonderful to see the project come to a close.
I was telling everybody, once we get our first liquidity event under our belt, right? So we found land, we had to transfer from the town. We had to set up a trust. We had to put money in the trust. We got the trust transferred to the land, went out for a bid. We found Habitat. We tailored our bid so that we can get this thing out there, and we pushed for a 2-family. Everyone only wanted to do a 1-family. And it worked. I mean, it took a while, but it worked. So you had a nonprofit working with a municipal government. And it went smoothly. So I'm thankful to everybody.
And they're saying they want to do another one, so that's a good sign.
do.
If we can find a spot for them.
Well, I'll go through Adam's letter. He's got a list. We can do a couple of 1-ups here and there, that would be great. I always wanted to do that one of the things in this is town parking lot, right, the town garage. There's 1 acre behind that garage. That'd be ideal to, if we can get rid of the ledge police, we could probably put something in there. Let's see, moving on, administrative items. Any items not anticipated within 48 hours? I don't think we have any. Anybody, anything? Nope. Okay. Meetings, for the minutes from our last meeting, they were sent out. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. And we've already confirmed our next date. So. Anything else, anyone?
No, that was interesting.
Okay, so did I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion
did,
to
yeah.
adjourn, yeah. What time we got?
All right, it is
5:37.
5:37. Thank you so much.
Another marathon.
Yes, thank you, Cassandra, for sticking around. I appreciate all your help. I really do. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll see
Okay,
you October 21st. Thanks,
All
Fred.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Take care now.
Bye.